Good morning, Marvel Rival nerds. Welcome to part 2 of the State of Strategists in Season 6 of Marvel Rivals. We're going to be looking at each strategist's capabilities in terms of healing, utility, survivability, and their ultimates, to see where their value really lies. But before we get into it, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and provide any feedback that you feel will be useful moving forward. So if you've seen part 1, you know exactly what we're getting into. So, jumping right into it with the cutest little demon you can ever imagine, Jeff the Land Shark. Jeff is loved by all for his wholesome appeal that he brings to the game, while also being very accessible to a lot of players. But let's see what Jeff has to offer other than his looks. So if you ask the majority of the community, Jeff is the last person you want to see on your team in a 2-healer setup. That's because he has one of the lowest healing outputs for a single target. However, when used correctly, he should be hitting multiple teammates at one time to increase the output of his healing. Not to mention using that bubble to add the additional 15% heal boost and to give your team an additional speed boost to keep them alive. So unless Jeff is optimized to the absolute peak, it's really hard to get the same amount of value on Jeff that you do on other healers. However, Jeff does come with some upsides. When looking at his utility, the damage of his spray is 70 damage per second, which isn't the greatest, but the damage and knockback you get from his Aqua Burst is actually pretty decent. 70 damage per burst for direct hits, plus that knockback effect, is super useful. It's obviously not the same as the DPS Jeff days, but some of the best Jeffs make it work. Now into the category that makes Jeff special, survivability. Starting with his swim ability. Obviously, it gives him 35 heals per second, but it also makes him unstoppable, which makes him CC immune to pretty much everything in the game. Not to mention that 60% speed buff that makes killing him almost impossible. Now combine that 60% speed boost with the speed boost you get from the bubbles, and you're not catching this shark. Finally, the ultimate that sets Jeff apart from the rest of the strategists finally got a buff to make it a healing ult, but 100 heals per second isn't the greatest when you compare it to the rest. Obviously, these aren't the reasons why you use the Jeff ult. You want to eat select targets, take them off the map, or even isolate them completely away from their team. Most Jeffs you play with are going to try to eat 6 people all at once and die trying. But the really good Jeffs know how to strategically select their targets and ensure kills that win the fight, most of the time without giving up his own life. Next up, one of the most broken characters in the game, Loki. He offers so much to his team in the form of healing, damage, clutch plays, and outplays. The one season he was nerfed was actually a blessing. And I promise, it's not just his ult that makes him good. Let's take a look at all the things Loki can do when he's played correctly. Immediately following his nerf, Loki was actually given multiple buffs to compensate for the drastic drop-off he saw in pick rate and win rate. 245 healing per second is huge for single target healing, but we have to remember he also does splash healing, and all of this doesn't consider the 100 healing per second you get from his regeneration domain. I've said it once and I'll say it again, that ability is an ultimate on cooldown, so make sure you use it wisely. Next up, the utility that Loki offers. A lot of people were complaining about his damage after the nerfs to his clones, but he still outputs a good amount of damage, especially when you get the surprise attack on people. The flank Loki strat is still alive and well, just not as deadly as it once was. Once again, to maximize Loki's utility, you really want to get the most out of these clones. Notice how the clones are in each one of the categories because they're that important to his playstyle. But once again, we see that regeneration domain come up in utility because that 30% damage conversion is a game changer. Going on to his survivability, for a non-mobile character, I'd venture to say he's one of the most survivable characters in the game. Between his disappearing act, his body switch, and his regeneration domain, a good Loki just won't die. But now let's talk about the biggest advantage of that regeneration domain, and that's the ability to counter ultimates. There's so many ults in the game that can completely wipe a team that the regeneration domain completely cancels. Psylocke ult, Star-Lord ult, Mag ult. It really is crazy what this single rune can do. And finally, on to the most unique ultimate in the game. The abilities are TBD. Obviously, the Loki ult is most often used for copying support ults, but that's not its only use. Think about the situation, and sometimes it's smart to copy a mag. Sometimes it's smart to copy a Star-Lord. Make sure you get value out of this ultimate. It can be game breaking. On to our favorite icon, Luna Snow. Luna is the original OP strategist of the game, but as the game has developed, she's actually taken a step back. This isn't just due to the nerf after nerf that she's received. It's also because the power creep makes her single target heals kinda insignificant. But that doesn't mean she's bad. Let's check her out in more detail to see what I mean. Luna was one of the first characters that I played when joining Marvel Rivals, and if you have the mechanical skill to back it up, she can easily be a carry in this game. Starting off with her healing, she used to have the highest single target healing in the game. 187 heals per second doesn't seem like a ton, but because it comes in big bursts, your team really feels it. And of course, we can't forget about the clap that pierces and gives Luna a little bit more area of effect when it comes to healing. But if you're just heal botting on Luna, I think you're doing it wrong. She does 132 damage per second, which is pretty high for our strategists. And when she uses her clap, it turns into a big projectile that can be easily hit on moving targets or large groups. One of the things that makes Luna not feel as great as the other healers is her lack of survivability. And even though there are 4 things here in the image, trust me, it's not as good as it seems. In the survivability category, she does have her ice skating movement, which makes her move at 9.6 meters per second, which is pretty fast, and honestly, highly recommended when the enemy first engages with you. Just turn around and run away. Make sure you keep yourself in a good position and give yourself enough time to run and hide. If you can't run, you have your snowball. The snowball does 50 damage and a 2.7 second freeze. A nice little addition to the freeze was the 50 bonus health if you actually hit it. And anytime you use an ability, her cryo recovery kicks in and heals you for 30 healing per second. Now obviously the reason that most people actually play Luna is for her broken ultimate. It may not be 12 seconds like it once was, but it still outputs insane amount of healing. 262 heals per second plus a 200 burst heal when it's first activated is insane. Or you can switch over to the damage boost and combo with a ton of abilities to one-shot opponents, kill through support ults, or just completely wipe the enemy team. The next strategist is permaban in pro play, but I feel like she's underappreciated in ranked. We're talking about Mantis. Mantis is a problem, to say the least, but most players see her as a problem in the bad way. They don't want to deal with her low healing output, even though the benefits far outweigh the trade-offs. Let me explain. Obviously, Mantis is still a strategist like anybody else, so let's cover her healing first. 11 heals per second plus a 2.75% max health heals per second. Now, I made a video explaining Mantis's healing a while back, so if you want to understand it further, definitely go check that out. To give you the TLDR, this healing works very well on tanks, as the healing per second is based on the health pool. However, because of the 55 burst that it gives on impact, it's pretty good for your more squishy characters as well. You're not going to be out healing some characters like Cloak, Invis, etc. But obviously Mantis isn't defined by her healing numbers. She's defined by the utility that she provides the team. One of the highest damage outputs for strategists in the game, 137 damage per second. The really good Mantis players are good at managing their leaves, getting more by hitting headshots, and damage boosting the correct targets at the correct times. Sometimes it's damage boosting your tanks right before they engage. Sometimes it's damage boosting your flankers as they get into position. And this is all not mentioning her sleep ability, which is often used to protect herself, but also used to stop ultimates or divers from completely annihilating you. Moving on to survivability, the sleep spore should honestly be in this column as well. However, what we do have is the self-inspire, which is a 12% damage boost, and the passive self-heal and speed boost when you're out of combat. So obviously this is Mantis' weakest column, but When positioned correctly and able to hit your shots, Mantis can hold her own against any character. Finally, let's talk about the ultimate. 165 healing per second isn't the best healing circle in the game, but the 220 burst on activation is very nice, and this ultimate actually provides 150 bonus health on top of the healing. So any overflow turns into extra protection. But that's not all. This ultimate also gives you a 3 meter per second speed boost, which makes your engage crazy. Think of a Gambit ult with more healing and less damage triggers. Now on to the second half of the Animal Crossing backline, Rocket Raccoon. Rocket could be one of the most impactful strategists in the game when utilizing his entire kit to the fullest. But his kit is so simple, players rarely optimize what he can offer. Also take into consideration that almost everything in his kit can be shut down. So when he's good, he's really good. And when he's bad, he's really bad. Let's talk about it. As you can see, there's not a ton of things in any single column. Like I said, Rocket's kit is very minimal, but each one of these can have a large impact. Starting off with his healing. 50 heals per second is definitely not a lot, but when thinking about you can have up to 7 balls out at one time, each one of them can bounce 10 times, and you can heal multiple people all at the same time, this number definitely adds up. The bigger portion comes from his 55 bursts per ball hit. Because you can fire 2 balls per second, this becomes 110 burst healing per second, which is nothing to scoff at. So the next time you see a Rocket player standing AFK, shooting their orbs into the ether, just know they could be getting a lot more value if they actually aimed. Moving on to utility, Rocket actually has the highest damage per second out of any strategist, and this comes directly from his Gatling gun at very close range. So don't be afraid to tear people down when they get into your face, or when your team effectively stuns them for multiple seconds at a time. But what really sets Rocket apart from most characters is his BRB. Having a res every 40 seconds is like having an extra teammate. Bringing somebody back into the fight is so important when trying to hold a point or from completely crumbling after one teammate falls. Now another thing that sets Rocket apart from his competition is his survivability. But unfortunately, NetEase just nerfed his wall run speed, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. Let Rocket be the elusive, scampering strategist on the battlefield. His 8 meter per second wall run still feels good, but it's a fraction of what he used to be able to do. And his 8 meter jetpack dash seems lackluster compared to some of the other movement abilities in the role. So let's maximize Rocket's mobility to make him as survivable as possible. Finally, onto his ultimate, the Cosmic Yard Amplifier. This ultimate is very unique, and I'm very glad that they gave him back his 40% damage boost. Because this is one of the easiest support ults to shut down, I think the 40% damage boost is a great trade-off. This ultimate actually doesn't heal anything. It gives 100 bonus health per second and maxes out at 150 bonus health. So because of that, it's one of the weaker ultimates in the role, but it can have a huge impact when used correctly. Finally, last but definitely not least, the flying menace himself, Ultron. Ultron is a volatile character. He's either extremely oppressive or not seen for large spans of time. With the newest buffs giving him a second drone, he's able to heal much more consistently while also being a threat at all times. If you don't take him out first, the game is already over. This is another character that doesn't have a ton in his kit. However, what he does supply is very unique to say the least. Now, because of the 2 drones, he's able to heal 70 heals per second when both drones are attached to a player. That doesn't include the surrounding teammates that it's also healing. So this number is deceptively low. The best part about Ultron is that you can put the drones on your teammates and point your attention to the offensive end. Make sure you're constantly looking for teammates that need an extra boost of health, as your firewall gives bonus health, but also has some nice new effects that we'll talk about right now. In the utility category, obviously you have his Encephalo Ray. At 72 damage per second, plus that 75 burst damage at the end, this is a very deadly weapon in the right hands. But let's talk about that firewall once again. It applies the 50 bonus health, but the new effect gives 10% damage boost and 20% speed boost. So if timed correctly, this not only protects your teammates, but makes them a walking battering ram. Now, what I said earlier was to make sure you kill Ultron first. That's definitely easier said than done. Ultron has his 8-meter dash that also gives him a 40% speed boost. He also gets bonus health on top of this ability. So at the first sign of danger, Ultron's jetting out of there with some extra health, and his firewall is applied to him. 65 extra self bonus health is nothing to scoff at. So it may take a couple of tries, but you still have to make sure to take out the Ultron first. Finally, we have Ultron's ultimate, Extermination! Now, I know everybody's seen this ultimate used to go after enemy backlines, and it's pretty good at doing that. But nobody really talks about the immense amount of healing that this ultimate can do. 750 healing per second is crazy. It's higher than any other support ult, but has a much smaller area of effect. But you do have to aim to get this value. Finally, let's talk about the winners of each category. Starting off with the healing category, my pick for best healer in the strategist role is Invis. Now everybody's going to have their argument for their own favorite healer. But by the numbers, Invis's single target heals are already insane. But the fact that all of her abilities can be used to heal multiple targets is what really throws her over the top in this healing category. Next up, the winner in the utility category is none other than Mantis. Now she doesn't have the most abilities in this category, but all of her abilities have immense impact. That damage boost can honestly break the game, and her damage output is unlike anybody else in the class. So when you put it all together, this character supplies more for her team than probably anybody else. Next up, survivability. And this may shock you, but I'm choosing Loki. Now the two others in the running for this award were Jeff and Rocket. Even though Jeff has self-healing, the unstoppable property, and crazy speed, anybody that can actually keep up with him will take him down because his movement can only do so much. And Rocket, with his nerfs, just doesn't make him the same as he once was. But a good Loki can really just never die. The amount of outplays that you can do on this character to stay alive is crazy. Bamboozle your opponent into leaving you alone, the teleportation to get out of sticky situations, and the invisibility that allows you to get out and heal up at the same time. And if you have to, you can even use your regeneration domain to keep yourself alive while you continue to support your team. And last but not least, the ultimate. And this wasn't even a fight. It obviously goes to Gambit. Gambit's ultimate just does way too much. And as of Season 6, it's still the most broken thing in the game. This character is constantly permabanned specifically because of his ultimate, and there's no competition for this prize. So hopefully Gambit gets tuned down just a bit, and we can dethrone him in this category in the future. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. This has been Judgment Monk with the State of Strategists Part 2. Let me know what you thought of the series, and as always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as more Rivals content is sure to come.